We need a lot of people coming. We need a lot of people coming in. We need a lot of people coming in. He didn't change his mind. He didn't change his mind. He didn't change his mind. Oh my God. No, I think this is a brutal wake-up call for a lot of Trump supporters.
The H-1B visa program is a total and complete scam concocted by the lords of easy money on Wall Street and the oligarchs in Silicon Valley. The citizens in this country are what provided the platform for you nerds even to exist. We're not going to take the temperature down. We're not going to take the temperature down. Oh no, oh no, oh no. We do not, it's no backing down, it's doubling down.
Well, now the big question is, how will Steve Bannon respond to Donald Trump? Because Donald Trump has weighed in on this giant debate within the Maga base in regard to H-1B visas. These are work visas for high-skilled foreign workers that are typically hired by tech companies. Silicon Valley has taken a lot of advantage of that program. And so in speaking with the New York Post, Donald Trump said, I have many H-1B visas on my properties. I have been a believer in H-1B. I have used it many times. It's a great program. Now, to be clear, Trump is confusing the visas that he utilizes in hiring workers for his properties. He's using a different type of visa entirely. I'll explain what that is in just a minute. But the debate right now centers on H-1B visas, which focus on high-skilled workers who are typically hired as engineers or to work in IT in Silicon Valley. These are people who have specialized skills. The types of foreign workers that Donald Trump hires for his properties are typically those who have H-2B and H-2A visas, and those are for, unskilled labor, right? Agricultural workers and low-skilled workers to do, work on Mar-a-Lago and other properties like that. I'll get more specific about that in just a minute. But it's really interesting to see how this is playing out, Cenk, because famously Donald Trump has been anti-immigrant, but he has always kind of had that caveat of wanting to bring in immigrants who are high skilled and who he feels are going to contribute to American society. And I remember in his first term, he had a conversation with Steve Bannon about it, and Steve Bannon is anti-immigration, period. He's a hardliner. That's what you heard in the compilation clip in the beginning. And so that debate just kind of went away in the first term, but now it's back because Elon Musk has the president-elect's ear, and he has benefited from foreign workers coming in and working at Tesla and things like that. There are problems with the H-1B visa program. I'll get to that in just a minute, but I'm curious what you think about this internal disagreement.
So I think this is absolutely critical, and it has very little to do with the H-1B visas. It has to do with this internal civil war, and whoever wins that, and it might be messy, and it might not be that one side wins definitively for 4 years. It might rock back and forth. We'll see how it plays out. But that's the major story here. The fact that Steve Bannon and Elon Musk are in an all-out brawl, and Trump has to figure out who to side with, is an amazing story. And the fact that it's not absolutely clear which one is right, that they might both be right and wrong in different ways, is also interesting.
It is.
Because politics used to be so simple, right? The Republicans say this, the Democrats say that. They're both fake. It's good cop, bad cop, and at the end they give the tax cuts to the rich, right? That's how it works 98% of the time. Now, the talking points are out the window, and there's people fighting on the right and the left against each other, et cetera. So along those lines, but I want to come back to H-1B visas, just give you the context of this particular fight. So that's for engineers but not extraordinary. That's a different visa for like extraordinary people that are actors, singers, et cetera, right? Or athletes. So then you've got the H-2B that is for more blue collar workers, and H-2A, which is just strictly for agriculture workers, right? H-2A is the only one that's unlimited because, keeping it real, Americans are not doing those jobs, and we need those folks to come in and do those jobs. Everybody kind of agrees to that, and at a minimum secretly agrees to that. But the other two are capped, and the question is, do you have a lot of them, some of them, or none of them? So when Trump talks about the H-1B visas, in the past in the first term he was definitely against. And now he says, I use them all the time. That's not true. he had about a dozen applications, but then withdrew them. He mainly used the H-2B visa for waiters.
Yeah, let me get to those details, because no, you're wrong actually. He was making a case in favor of H-1B visas, and Bannon disagreed with him in the first term. And then that debate just kind of went away.
Yeah, it's mixed, Anna.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe Bannon temporarily persuaded him to be against H-1B visas, but I distinctly remember how Trump was like opening up about like, oh no, but we want the skilled workers to come in.
Yeah, I know what you're remembering. It was literally an interview he did with Steve Bannon, I think, on a Sirius satellite radio show. And Steve Bannon said, we don't want these guys coming in from India and China and becoming executives in Silicon Valley. And that's where Trump did the right thing. And he was like, no, what difference does it make as long as they're rich and they're good at what they do, et cetera, right? But technically, he was against H-1B visas in his first term.
Okay, all right, so let's get to some more specific details here. So look, the skilled worker program that offers the H-1B visas currently has a cap of 65,000 per year, a number that technology companies have pushed to increase. So the tech CEOs want to lift that cap because, let's keep it real, it helps them save on labor costs. This does drive down wages for American workers in this line of work. There's no question about that. Li Fong wrote an excellent piece about very specific companies in Silicon Valley that have really abused this system to the detriment of American workers. So I do think that some who are against the H-1B visas are making a decent point about that. But I also think that we can keep the program while reforming it, because I also think that there might be some instances where we don't have enough American workers for certain specialized jobs, right? It really depends. I do think Americans should be considered first for these jobs, but there is evidence to indicate that that has not been the case, and I'll give you that evidence in a minute. But then you go to the H-2B visas, which are for non-agricultural, unskilled labor. Trump's businesses do benefit from this the most. They're capped at 66,000 per year. And finally, there's the H-2A visas, which are for agricultural workers, and those do not have any caps. So from 2003 to 2017, Trump's companies were approved for more than 1,000 H-2 visas for jobs like cooks, housekeepers, waiters at his properties, including Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, and the Trump National Golf Club in Jupiter, Florida. And then in each instance, the companies have to attest that there's just no American citizen that can perform this job, which I find difficult to believe when it comes to the Mar-a-Lago and the golf club jobs. And then there's the agricultural jobs, right? Currently, Trump's winery in Charlottesville, Virginia is seeking 31 foreign vineyard farm workers under the H-2A program, offering them $15.81 per hour. So hours before Donald Trump said that he is siding with Elon Musk and he's in favor of these visas, Steve Bannon had actually just done his show and he was attacking Elon Musk for wanting to not only protect the program, but also lift the cap. And so to Elon Musk's credit, he's also open to reforming the system for its flaws and abuses. So I wanna mention that as well, but Bannon wants none of it. And so this is what he said on his show in response to Elon Musk just hours before Trump weighed in on it.
This is Elon Musk. The reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of H-1B. Take a big step back and F yourself, all caps, in the face. F yourself in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. Oh yeah, tough guy? You're going to go to war on the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. You're a man-child. The H-1B visa program is a total and complete scam concocted by the lords of easy money on Wall Street and the oligarchs in Silicon Valley to both initially to just increase profit margins. But there's a darker element to it today. A contempt of America and American citizens, and we're not going to tolerate it. You need to honor this country, and you need to honor the citizens in this country. The citizens in this country are what provided the platform for you nerds even to exist. Because in the predatory nature, the Darwinian environment of the world as it is, you would have already been crushed and destroyed.
So there are clearly different camps within Donald Trump's base, and you have the hardliners like Steve Bannon. Like, I think that there are good people who are concerned about American jobs, right? I don't think that those people fall in the same category as Steve Bannon, who seems to be more in favor of creating like some sort of ethno-state type of situation. So I don't want the good people who have real legitimate concerns about the H-1B visa program to be lumped in with the Steve Bannons. Then you have the Elon Musks, who I think are more representative of big business in Silicon Valley, and they absolutely have taken advantage of this program to maximize their profits. So for instance, let's focus on Tesla for a second. Tesla is relying quite heavily on these workers. So Tesla has obtained 724 H-1B visas this year alone. And so, yeah, if you're benefiting from it, and if you're able to pay these foreign workers a little less and also take advantage of them working like workhorses, then yeah, you're gonna wanna protect that program and you're gonna wanna lift that cap. But oftentimes this is happening to the detriment of American workers, and that's what I was referring to in regard to Lee Fong's reporting. So just to give you a quick example, Cenk, he writes that Google, Amazon, and Microsoft all rely on a funnel of such workers. Meta is classified as H-1B dependent over its unusually high foreign visa workforce. And as layoffs hit Silicon Valley last year, the tech industry ramped up applications to bring in even more foreign personnel. So they're literally laying off American workers and replacing them with the foreign workers. And so that's where some of the resentment is coming from and where some of the concern is coming from. And I don't want to discount that because it does drive wages down, even for people who went to college, probably put themselves in a tremendous amount of debt, and then are unable to find jobs in Silicon Valley despite the education that they went out and pursued.
Yeah, so this story is so interesting because they're both half right and half wrong, Steve Bannon and Elon Musk. And where those halves fall are going to be determinative. Steve Bannon is against all immigrants, and he even makes it racial. So does Laura Loomer. And in a minute, we're going to agree. I don't know about Anna. I'm going to agree with Laura Loomer.
Disagree.
Okay, all right. So hold on. We're going to show you that video, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay. So we don't agree with Laura Loomer and Steve Bannon on their
rhetoric,
anti-immigrant stance,
racism,
their rhetoric, their racism. Then when they specifically talk about other races and say they don't want them here, it doesn't. I mean, that's like the definition of racism. This is not like, hey, there's something wrong with our institution, so I'm calling everyone in the country a white supremacist. No, they specifically will say we don't want Indians in the country.
Yeah.
That's the definition of racism. Okay. So now on the other hand, when they talk about, hey, we need to protect American workers, and sometimes these companies and their corporate executives and the donor class aren't interested in doing the right policy for America. They're interested in doing the right policy for Tesla or SpaceX or their individual companies. They are correct about that. And the fact that they are telling right-wing voters in this battle, remember, watch out for the donor class, watch out for the corporate executives.
True, yeah.
Is really important. So as much as I loathe Bannon and Loomer on those things that I have every right to loathe them on, it is super interesting and important, and yes, I'm gonna say it, positive, that they are saying, watch out for the donor class, watch out for corporate rule. I mean, Steve Bannon the other day said we need to increase corporate taxes dramatically, we need to raise taxes on the rich, and those folks need to help pay for the things that helps the average American. I mean, that is what we've been saying for 20, 25 years, and so I'm not going to do this silly thing that the left has done for a long time. A person has said one bad thing, even if it's like nuclear bad, or a couple of bad things or whatever, that's it. I won't take yes for an answer. I'll just dismiss them out of hand and say there's nothing to do. I'm gonna close my mind and I'm not even gonna think about it, and I'm not gonna do nuance, and I'm not gonna try to do an interesting strategy where we go, you're right on the corporate executives and corporate rule, you're terribly wrong on race, right? And separate out social and economic issues. Now, when you get to Elon Musk, he's right there. What are you guys doing talking about how Indians are this and that or Muslims are bad?
He's offended by the racist rhetoric, and he should be. I mean, some of Laura Loomer's, look, I don't know what you are specifically referring to that you agree with Laura Loomer, so I'll wait to watch the video. However, some of her tweets were some of the most disgusting tweets I've read on X.
Oh,
and that's
definitely.
saying something, okay?
Yeah, 100%. But so when you go to the H-1B visas, before we go to the tape, a really interesting, thoughtful critique of them is from David Sirota, who's a great progressive, right? And Sirota talks about, hey, look, they're using these not because they really can't find any engineers in America, just that they don't want to pay the engineers the prices that they would have to pay, the salaries they would have to pay them under normal conditions. So they bring in guys to work at half the rates. And so this is just another form of corruption. And so my guess on H-1B visas is the answer is somewhere in between. That H-1B visas can be used appropriately and can be amazing and wonderful and bring in some top talent from across the world here, which I think is great and strengthens us. But we need to be careful that it's not abused by corporations so that it drives our wages lower, including for engineers, right? But nobody's having that nuanced conversation. So at the end of the day, Trump just goes, Elon or Bannon. Oh, Elon's got way more money, Elon. And he chose Elon and said H-1B visas are great when that was not his earlier position. And he uses H-2B visas, not H-1B visas. So that is inaccurate. So we got the Laura Loomer media clip.
Yeah,
so let's watch.
What we need to have a conversation about is what is it going to mean for the future of our country, our national security, and the incoming Trump administration if we have a bunch of technocrats who are also essentially welfare queens because their companies are receiving government subsidies and they want to take over our defense industry. If you have a bunch of tech bros with billions of dollars and direct unfettered access to the vice president and the president of the United States, and then they are also, very cordial with our adversaries, as in China and Iran. We see that Elon Musk is having these meetings off the books with Iranian officials, with Chinese officials. What does that mean for us and the future of our constitutional republic?
Okay, I mean, it bothers me to say it, but almost everything she said there was totally right. So they are getting government subsidies. Elon's companies get enormous government subsidies. They are looking for breaks for their own companies. They do care about making separate deals with China, Iran, and everyone else because a ton of their money, billions and billions of dollars, are tied up in China. That is their interest, not the American interest. Those are two different things. When she called those corporate executives and the corporations themselves welfare queens, something I've called them for a long time and people caught feelings over. They are welfare queens. The oil companies take $30 billion in subsidies and rob us blind every single year. What she said about the Pentagon was right. Now, for those of people who think, well, no, Laura Loomer is unacceptable. You can't ever say she's right, even if she says the sky is blue and the grass is green. She has said the worst possible things about Muslims. I'm Muslim. So I get it. She's terribly wrong on race, right? But at the same time, you have significant portions of Maga that are now saying corporate rule sucks, and I'm tired of taking my taxpayer money and giving it to these executives and to these companies. And let's make sure we're careful about the donor class, even ones next to Donald Trump. That is an excellent development, excellent. They are thinking for themselves. They're looking out for corruption even among Trump's donors. So even if I disagree with them on the H-1B visa, the fact that this rebellion is happening and the civil war is happening is wonderful news. Not because, it's gonna destroy the Republican Party, which is what Rachel Maddow is gonna say, right? But because it's actually showing you that they're thinking for themselves, and we might be able to have the most untraditional alliances you have ever seen to actually fight against corporate rule.
Issue by issue.
Issue by issue.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I agree. In that clip, what she said was correct. And I will also commend them for engaging in a debate on the substance of this program, right? I think it's important to find solutions. I don't want to get rid of the H-1B visa program, but I do think it needs to be reformed because there is evidence that it's being abused to the detriment of American workers. And I think it's important to protect American workers, especially when they've done what they're supposed to do. They went to school, they took out the student loan debt, and now they're unable to find a job in Silicon Valley because foreign workers are being brought in to maximize profits for these companies.
In his ex-post, Vivek Ramaswamy argues that the problem isn't mass immigration, but American culture itself. It's a Convenient theory, but one that misses the mark entirely.
Recently, Fox anchor Rachel Campos Duffy, a woman I very rarely agree with, actually did an interesting and lengthy takedown of Vivek Ramaswamy over his support for the use of H-1B visas by various business owners, especially Silicon Valley tech bros, and especially his long rant against American culture and work ethic. Now, Duffy started her segment with the story of Leo Pereiro. And I think this is a story that a lot of Americans can relate to. So he was actually an IT worker over at Disney, but he was getting laid off. And if he wanted to collect his bonus and his severance, the only way he could do it is if he was willing to train his replacement, a foreign worker who was brought to the country on an H-1B visa. So Pereiro said the experience demoralized him and made him want to leave the IT field entirely. He said, I felt extremely un-American. I felt like I was part of destroying our economy because I had to train a replacement that was going to come here, take my job, and potentially take other people's jobs. So that aside, let's watch more of what Campos Duffy had to say.
Americans aren't opposed to bringing in more geniuses like Elon Musk, but let's not kid ourselves into believing Disney's replacements were all budding Einsteins. These workers are willing to put up with lower pay, longer hours, and overall worse conditions, unable to leave their jobs without risking deportation because they want to become citizens and bring their families over through chain migration. These companies are creating a permanent underclass of foreign workers. It's a rigged game designed to create cheap labor and make it impossible for American citizens to compete. This has been a problem for decades, and despite our leaders getting directly called out about it, they refuse to take action.
Now, what's fascinating about this whole debate on the right end of the political spectrum is the fact that Donald Trump has effectively sided with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy on this. He says, in regard to those who are mad at him because they feel he changed his mind on immigration, he says, I didn't change my mind. I always felt we have to have the most competent people in our country. We need competent people. We need smart people coming into our country. We need a lot of people coming. We need a lot of people coming in. We need a lot of people coming in. He didn't change his mind. He didn't change his mind. He didn't change his mind. Oh my God. No, I think this is a brutal wake-up call for a lot of Trump supporters, right? Because it's just so brazen that he's siding with the guy, the billionaire, who funded his campaign. This is how politics works in America, and we hate it. We hate the corruption. But let me finish the statement. Finally, he says, we're going to have jobs like we've never had before. Okay. So Waz, I'm just gonna go straight to you before we continue on with more details to this story.
Where to even begin with this? Just that segment on Fox News, honestly, could have been words spoken by Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
Before 2016. Like, that's literally a Bernie Sanders, Bernie Crat talking point about working conditions and the way that management and capital artificially depress wages for American workers by bringing it. So again, let's get to these H-1 visas, right? If they brought these folks in and automatically made them American citizens, I'm okay with that, okay? I'm cool with immigration, just generally speaking. These people come in and get to work at Google or Facebook or whatever the hell it is. Yeah, cool, make them American. I'm sure they can get other jobs and be part of a nice tax base and all of that stuff. I'm cool with it, but we know that's not what happens. They basically get turned into, I'm sorry, indentured servitude where they can't even leave their job. They can't even go, the company that got the visa issued for them, they can't even go take their work somewhere else. They're beholden to these folks. And so of course, they're willing to work longer hours. Of course, they're willing to take less days off. And what do you think that does? That creates an environment, a culture within that workplace. And so, of course, that's why management loves it. They're undercutting their workforce, their American-born workforce, by saying, look at these folks whose visas and livelihood and their ability to stay in America. Look at how they behave at our job. Aren't they great? You should follow suit. So, you know, we shouldn't be surprised by that. And then the other thing that I think conservatives are slowly waking up to is that you got to stand by a principle and you have to apply it always. Meaning, what's the principle? Billionaires, unelected, didn't run a campaign, should not be setting policy because they're going to set policy for themselves. There's gonna be, every now and again, there's gonna be some stuff that overlaps for normal people. It's like, yeah, Elon said he didn't like immigration. Yeah, okay. But the principle should always be, these guys are unaccountable to anybody. Why should they have a right to dictate terms in the government? So I don't care if it's Elon Musk. I don't care if it's, you know, some of these Wall Street people that the Dems seem to be so obsessed with and other business tycoons. I don't care who it is. The principle holds true. Like, these people should not have an outsized voice in government, Anna.
I totally agree with you. You brought up Bernie Sanders, so I can't help but read his tweet from today, where he calls out Elon Musk, saying Elon Musk is wrong. The main function of the H-1B visa program is not to hire the best and the brightest, but rather to replace good-paying American jobs with low-wage, indentured servants from abroad. 100%. The cheaper the labor they hire, the more money the billionaires make. And this is where I think that there's common ground among some on the left, okay, and a faction of Trump's base, right? The America First base. Now, look, some of them use rhetoric that I disagree with. I have no malice in my heart for foreign workers or foreigners, period. But I do have malice in my heart for billionaires and for these corporations who screw over American workers, okay, and instead bring in workers from abroad that they can abuse, that they can pay far less. And look, imagine doing the work, going to college, digging yourself into that debt to get the degree necessary to get hired for one of these Silicon Valley jobs, and then getting laid off. Before you leave, you got to train the foreign worker that they brought from another country, or else you're not going to get your severance pay. Because that's what's happening right now in the country. And I understand that resentment and that anger that people are feeling. And so I'm so curious to see how this plays out, because unlike 2016, I am noticing that there are members of Trump's base who are willing to criticize him pretty viciously if he's not going along with what he promised to do. And in this case, this isn't America First. If you're going to support an abused worker visa program to the detriment of the American people, you know, this faction of his supporters are going to speak out. And they've been speaking out. And I can't believe we're watching a Fox News segment right now.
Insane.
Showing concern for American workers. Like,
workers' rights, working conditions. Like, what?
I love it. I love it. I'll take it. So let's pivot to the culture war element to this, because Duffy was furious at the fact that Vivek Ramaswamy essentially engaged in this lengthy Twitter thread or X thread, claiming that American workers are essentially lazy bums and their work ethic isn't great. And so they have no choice but to bring in foreign workers because their work ethic is much better. So as mentioned earlier, Campos Duffy went off on Ramaswamy's takedown of American culture. So if you've forgotten what he said, here are a few of the excerpts from that long rant. He said, our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long. By the way, productivity in America just keeps shooting up. But okay, let me continue. At least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ, or the jock over the valedictorian, will not produce the best engineers. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. Look, I'm so sick of like the China fear mongering.
It's nonsense.
Yeah, like the boogeyman utilized to beat American workers to submission. So Compost Duffy's response is interesting because on one hand, it covers the usual like Fox talking points about cultural Marxism and the like. But on the other hand, she also states that like there's more to life than making big corporations a lot of money. I know, it's crazy. So let's watch.
American culture gave the world electricity, airplanes, cars, Elvis, the internet, Rocky Balboa, and Star Wars. What we're witnessing now isn't the failure of American culture, but the deliberate erosion of it. A demoralization campaign fueled by decades of mass immigration and an education system poisoned by cultural Marxism. Sadly, we're replacing American goodness with godlessness. Some of MAGA's newest members envision a cold tech and corporate future for us, one that fails to appreciate the humanity and vulnerability of our own citizens. Secularism, transhumanism, and AI will never satisfy the soul. America is not a sports team, and winning in the stock market is not my definition of success for America.
I can't believe I just heard that last sentence, especially. I don't know what to make of it.
There's just so much. There's just so much going on. So one of the more interesting parts for me watching this play out is the culture war on American culture. Like if we could just rewind when that whole thing about the Haitian immigrants in Ohio was going on, and some of the least foaming at the mouth Klansmen sort of people on the right were putting out like, look, like there are people who aren't just racist. It's like a bunch of people coming to their neighborhood and they feel like things are changing and this is not what they signed up for. They didn't give an okay and they feel like, things are happening under their feet. This idea that like their culture is now changing. What Vivek Ramaswamy just said is like, no, that's exactly what we want. We think American culture is deficient. We want to replace it with an Indian culture. And by the way, all of the worst parts of it and none of the good. Okay, nothing about community, nothing about like a sort of sense of belonging and togetherness and all of that. Just this idea that there are Indian workers who are willing to work themselves to the nub. And that's what we should follow. Nothing else about an Indian culture. And that's just so crazy to me because, to me, I always make the sort of argument about immigration is like, these people are just gonna become Americans. That's just what it is. That's just how our culture is. They're gonna end up eating hot dogs. They're gonna end up, buying way too much Ben and Jerry's at the freaking supermarket. Maybe I'm telling on myself, but like, they're just gonna become Americans. That's just what we do here. But what Vivek and Elon too, what they're saying is like, no, we need to change American culture. They're dissing America as an idea.
Yes, 100%.
These are these sicko, there's no love lost between me and these tech people. Like these people don't believe in nations. Just the idea of being patriotic and prioritizing the people of a nation, of nationhood itself, they think is stupid. They think, this is some pig-headed nonsense from the plebes. Like they don't believe in some sense of belonging and being part of it. And guess what? I'm not surprised. These freaking dorks are antisocial. That's why you didn't have any friends. And the reason why Vivek is mad, I'm telling y'all, is because some hot sorority chicks in college didn't give him any play. And he's still pissed about it. That's all he's talking about. This idea that we didn't love Screech and Urkel enough. People love those characters.
Hell yeah.
It's insane. This is all just a personal vendetta of a bunch of freaking dorks.
Well, look, when it comes to Elon Musk, that dork is looking to maximize profits. Like, I don't care that he's like already the richest man in the world. Like for them, it's never enough. And he is willing to sell out American workers in order to maximize his profits. And I think, again, a faction of MAGA has woken up to that. And I'm glad that they've woken up to that. And I'm glad they're speaking out against it. And look, I have a few other things to say. Number one, I haven't really heard much from populist J.D. Vance on this. Could it be because Donald Trump has sided with Elon Musk on it?
We know the vibes.
Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two is, so if you're working so hard that you're almost like sleeping at the office every night, how exactly is that going to help with our lower birth rate problem? Like, is he inviting people to knock boots on his desk over at Tesla? Like, it's Elon Musk is brilliant in a lot of ways, but he's also not brilliant in a lot of ways. And this is an example of that, right? He has difficulty seeing outside of his own like lived experience. People are not going to be able to raise families if they're forced to work in the way that Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk demand they work. And honestly, the best thing in life is not spending as much time in the office as humanly possible or making as much money as humanly possible. It is spending time with your family. But that's the thing. If you're working like that, you're not able to spend time with your family and you're not able to raise your own kids. And that's not the kind of life Americans want to live. And I support them in not wanting to live that kind of life. I totally agree with them in not wanting to live that kind of life. And if Americans are working hard, if they're going to school, if they're getting their education, they're doing everything right, and they're undercut by foreign workers because they get to, corporations get to abuse them and pay them less, well, that's wrong. And I'm glad that people are speaking out against it. That's not to say that the entire program should be eliminated. I think there's still a role for H-1B visas, especially if there's a shortage of workers in a specialized field. But Americans should be considered first for those jobs. And there needs to be more protection for American workers when it comes to abuses of the system. And to be sure, there are many abuses of the system.
Other Democrats have begun calling Musk, not Trump, the president, President Musk.
I mean, what do you make of the role, though, to build off of that Musk is playing here? I mean, who is in charge, do you view, in terms of who you have to negotiate with?
That's a great question. I don't have the answers right now.
I think that the narrative is going to be driven by President-elect Trump.
Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the tech overlords who appear to be running Trump's second-term agenda, rely on highly skilled immigrants to power their enterprises.
There is this ongoing and growing narrative in the mainstream media and among Democrats that the real incoming president is not Donald Trump. It's actually one of his billionaire donors, Elon Musk, that he's really the shadow president. And there are some reports alleging that as a result, Donald Trump is souring on Elon Musk. And that is if you are to believe some of the anonymous sources who spoke to Mediaite about this matter. So they say that Trump is allegedly growing weary of Musk's presence and that his antics are drawing a little too much media attention that Trump doesn't see as favorable. In fact, one person says 100% Trump is annoyed. This is from a Trump insider who worked on the 2024 campaign and spoke to Mediaite. There's a Chinese saying, 2 tigers cannot live on one mountaintop. Another Trump insider told Mediaite, quote, there was likely an allure to the alliance between the president-elect and Musk in the beginning, but it seemed like it could go ugly. Trump is Trump. I think it's just the way Trump is. Someone that is around that much and having influence would be a bother. I mean, the guy came in, gave a boatload of money and wants to take over the place. I'm just going to pause right here. This Trump insider sounds a little bitter, right? Like, I'm wondering if this Trump insider is leaking things that are embellished or maybe engaging in some hyperbole to kind of snipe at Elon Musk. I don't know how much of this is manufactured or how much of this is real, but I'll give you one more quote from this individual. They say that the media is portraying Musk as a co-president. Musk is a character actor. There is only one executive producer, one lead in this TV show, and that is Trump. Elon will have his role, his focuses, but he is meant to disrupt the status quo in Washington, and Trump is weaponizing him. So with all that chatter in mind, Cenk, how real do you think this is? Or do you think that this is kind of manufactured in order to, basically put a wedge between Trump and Elon Musk?
First of all, quick note for the audience. Anna's at home today because 2 tigers cannot be on the same mountain.
People are saying.
Okay, so this is a real conundrum for Donald Trump because it's the two things he loves most: money versus MAGA. So the one thing that he's good at, and this could lead in a very bad direction for the country, or sometimes I think it could lead in a good direction, which is he is way more responsive to his MAGA base than the Democrats are to their base or anybody else is to their base. So as a political figure, that's not such a bad thing. You should be responsive to your voters. And so now his voters want some things that we massively disagree with. So that could be, that's why I say it could be bad for the country in some ways, right? But the fact that he's responsive to any voters is such a huge difference than my entire career of covering politics, where both corporate Democrats and Republicans couldn't care less about their voters. So on the other hand, if there's one thing Trump cares more about, it's money, 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 money. So, and Elon has an infinite amount. So there's 1,000 different ways that Elon Musk can get Donald Trump money while he's in office, after he's leaves office. And I would be very surprised if Elon Musk didn't suggest some of those ways to Donald Trump already. And I would be very surprised if that wasn't at the very front of Donald Trump's mind. So far we've had a couple of fights, and including the H-1B visas, and Trump has come out on Elon Musk's side every single time. Now we have another problem, which is that Elon Musk is uncontrollable, just like Donald Trump. So if he was savvy and didn't have ADD, he would wait for Trump to say something and then he would back it up. But instead of doing that, he's going out in front of Donald Trump and making it appear that Donald Trump is following him. That is a very, very bad idea, right? So he's not even bothering to pause for a second to do some degree of political strategy that would be savvy for him. So there is a bit of a freight train collision ahead, and Donald Trump hates anyone else taking the spotlight, but he loves money so much. So that's why I got no prediction on this one. I don't know how it resolves itself. I don't know if Musk basically becomes president because he's promised Trump a couple of $1 billion, or at some point Trump goes, very disappointed with the leader of my Doge, very disappointed. Okay, we're not picking the best anymore. Okay, so and then does Musk try to use X against Trump? Do the people on X rebel against Musk? Those are some serious heavyweight dramas, and they're almost certainly coming down the pike. And I don't know which way it ends.
So a couple of things. The whole debate on the H-1B visas, you're correct in that Elon Musk got wrapped up in this online debate. Trump really wasn't involved in it until he was asked about it, and at that point he sided with Elon Musk. In the case of endorsing House Speaker Mike Johnson for re-election for the speakership role, Donald Trump was the one who came out and decided to endorse Mike Johnson, and then Elon Musk followed along. So what I'm noticing, well, he did. I mean, he said, all right, you have my full support to Mike Johnson.
He did, but
also told, hold on, and then told Thomas Massie, all right, let's give him a shot. Let's see how this goes. But prior to that, prior to Trump's endorsement, he was sharing his discontent toward Mike Johnson and how he was handling the effort to fund the government. That was before Christmas break. So I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. And you're right. I mean, these types of relationships tend to be a little fragile with Donald Trump. But the other factor in all of this is the insane amount of money that Elon Musk, of course, contributed to Trump during the campaign. And the other thing that I'm noticing, Cenk, is Steve Bannon hasn't been getting his way. And I wonder if that has more to do with Susie Wiles, his, obviously the head of his campaign and his incoming chief of staff, or if it has more to do with Trump's just wanting to side with Elon Musk over the campaign contributions. But interesting things are happening, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, so a couple more things. So first of all, just to be clear on the Massie thing, Massie's opposed to Johnson. And so when Elon Musk then, an hour after he said, oh yeah, I agree with Trump, let's go with Johnson, then said to Massie, yeah, maybe you might be right about being against Johnson. Let's see how it plays out. That's kind of saying, hey, everybody, I don't necessarily agree with Donald Trump. And that's a risky card to play, man. An hour after you backed Johnson, just giving you a heads up on on the dynamics of that. Elon might not even know. He's not that. He's never been involved in politics, and he just blurts out anything that's at the top of his head. So it might be less strategy and just being a little bit of an amateur on this stuff. In terms of Steve Bannon, yeah, he's being super aggressive against Elon Musk. I mean, he keeps having Laura Loomer on. Laura Loomer keeps pointing out, hey, he's a big donor, and these tech bros aren't really pro-American. And Laura Loomer said, hey, maybe we should do campaign finance reform. I mean, what world do we live in? That is amazing. Interesting bedfellows here, right? And so, Bannon tried to calm her down a little bit and said, hey, maybe there's some misunderstandings, et cetera. But then he did say bayonets forward, and that they're never going to surrender, they're never going to give in to any of this stuff, the H-1B visas, any immigration. Now he's saying, let's get rid of all legal immigration. So obviously I massively disagree with that. But so Susie Wiles has made it tougher to reach Donald Trump. And Susie Wiles has also said that if you're part of the administration, you're not allowed to tweet until you check with her. The only person who's ignoring that is Elon Musk, because he's not technically part of the administration, also because he's Elon Musk. So last thing.
Besides which, that's never gonna work anyway. I mean, we know from experience.
Yeah, but I hear you, but like the smaller characters in that play don't wanna mess with the chief of staff for Donald Trump, right? And he's given her a lot of latitude. And so they're not gonna wanna mess with Trump or Musk either. So they're gonna wanna keep their powder dry. Like, I don't see Stephen Miller jumping into the middle of this, because what if he picks the wrong side and then Trump dumps him? And remember, he unceremoniously dumped Bannon because Bannon had said some bad things about him in a book. So that's always possible. But last thing is it real or is it manufactured, this kind of conflict between the two? It's a little bit of both. So look, of course the Democrats and people on the left are egging this division on by calling him President Musk and all that stuff, and they know that that's going to get under Trump's skin, and that's why they're doing it. On the other hand, yeah, I mean, Trump can be controlled by money. He has been controlled by money before, and Elon has all the money in the world. So, and remember, guys, in the past, Elon gave, as in like that what just happened, Elon gave money to his campaign. Miri Madelson gave money to his campaign. Mellon did, et cetera. But now they can just give money directly to him through a lot of different ways that are now legal because Donald Trump has a giant public company on the stock market. So at this point, the promises are no longer campaign contributions. They are direct, gigantic potential checks to Donald Trump himself. And if you don't think Donald Trump cares about that, you don't know the brother at all.
So the only red flag that I've seen so far is obviously the allegations that Elon Musk is going to be the shadow president is something Trump felt the need to address. And he did that while speaking before Turning Point USA. So I just want to play that quick clip. Let's take a look.
The new one is President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No, that's not happening. But Elon's done an amazing job.
Trump later joking the South African-born Musk, who helped Trump kill the original bipartisan spending deal, couldn't be president.
You know why? He can't be. He wasn't born in this country.
So I thought that was interesting, like the need to address that. I don't know if it's because it's getting under his skin or if he just wanted to make that joke about it. But the whole point of a shadow president is that this individual would not actually be known as the acting president. It would be the, person behind the scenes, essentially like a puppet master, kind of like how Dick Cheney was with George W. Bush.
Yeah, the Elon running at some later point when Trump's not in office is not at all relevant. So that comment made no sense. And as you know, I think that Trump is wrong about that. I believe that if you're not born in the country, you still can run for president because of the 14th Amendment. But none of that is relevant. He's deflecting because the real question is whether Musk is controlling Trump, and he's avoiding that by talking about some future election. But you can tell he doesn't like it, and that's not surprising at all. He hates anyone else getting the spotlight. So that's why it's such a giant conflict, and he's spotlight. precious money, precious. And by the way, where Maga is not at all clear either. There's a lot of tech bros in Maga, and there's a lot of Bannon fans in Maga, and then there are people that are not in either one of those camps. So this thing could be a wonderful, interesting mess.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.